The work of government is noble. The people of government are amazing. The systems of government are a mess. With all the issues facing the work of government today, the most dire is capacity. In some of our most critical areas, like food benefits, volume has increased by 40%, while the budget needed to deliver these services has shrunk by 10, 20, even 30%. Like rising pressure in a water system inadequately designed to meet the needs of the day, there are so many people in our pipeline now. And our pipes are getting smaller. There is a tremendous pressure building. To avoid a burst, we have to find a way to deal with the capacity. But to find that, we must understand how we got into this noble, amazing mess. The Fable of Complexity begins where all good fables begin, with a once upon a time in a faraway land. Chapter 1. In the Beginning. In the beginning there was a kingdom that wanted to be fair and just. They wanted everyone in the land to have clean air and water, to be safe and healthy, to learn and grow prosperous. It was a noble kingdom who worked hard for the people. And here we meet Abby, a noble maiden who worked for you in a government office in the kingdom. Abby approved applications. They came in, were reviewed to be sure that they were complete, analyzed, approved or rejected, and the decision entered into a database. At about 30 minutes apiece, customers got their answer in about a day. And so it was until… Chapter 2. The Pile. One day, Abby started getting more applications than she could do in a day. It seemed more and more people needed her and the important work that she did. She discovered a new thing on her desk, a pile. As the pile grew larger and larger, Abby panicked. She cried out to her boss for help. Her manager, Elle, looked at the large pile and hired a consultant to help. The consultant agreed with Abby. No one person could possibly keep up with all the work that was creating the pile. So the consultant suggested they split the work up. And so it was until… Chapter 3. Help arrives. Then came Ben. Ben now received the mail for Abby. He was very good at receiving mail. Carol got the mail from Ben and thoroughly reviewed each application for Abby so that only correct and complete forms got to her. Abby continued to analyze the forms, free of the distraction of actually receiving the mail and incomplete forms. To make sure everyone was doing a good job, Elle, the manager, decided the final decision on each application should be hers. So the good people of the kingdom got what they needed. Applications now took 3 days. And so it was until… Chapter 4. Something's missing. One day, something came up missing, and Elle was very unpleased. Ben blamed Carol, Carol blamed Abby, and the blame storm continued until Elle grew so mad she couldn't take it anymore.
I don't care who lost it, just never let it happen again.
Ben, fearing another one of Carol's mistakes could cost him his job, had a brilliant idea. He started counting each application that came in and stacked them, creating a cover sheet before sending them to anyone. When Carol got a stack, not trusting Ben, she first had to recount each application and put her own cover sheet on before she was comfortable reviewing them for completeness. Now, applications would take 5 to 6 business days, and there were piles of stacks everywhere. But nothing would ever be lost again. And so it was until… Chapter 5. Where's my stuff? People in the kingdom were not used to waiting 5 days for their applications, so when no answer arrived, they began to call Abby, worried that their stuff was lost. So many stacks on so many desks. How could Abby ever find a single application? If she was ever going to be able to serve the customer, she had to be able to find any application quickly. So, Elle put in a new tracking system to help them find applications that were in the stacks that were on the desks, so that Abby could more quickly answer customers' questions about their stuff. Which was not a good idea, it was a great idea, because now a lot of people were calling to ask about their stuff. Now, applications moved in stacks of 100, with cover sheets and tracking sheets, and took 2 weeks to complete. And so it was until… Chapter 6. They just keep calling and calling. Despite the fancy new tracking system, people kept calling and calling. Abby's phone was so busy people couldn't get through, and soon people were calling anyone who might be able to help. Each call meant time on the phone finding a caller's application and less time processing applications. Less time processing applications meant more applications would be late. More late applications meant more phone calls, and that meant even more time away from processing, which meant more late applications,
more calls, less time to work. More late applications, more calls, less time to work. More late applications, more calls, less time to work. More late applications, more calls, less time to work.
Everyone grew more and more frustrated. It had to stop. They all cried for help. L brought back the consultant, who used his keen sense of perception to analyze the issue and proclaim they were spending too much time on the phone with unhappy customers to do the work. The answer? An office of customer service. They could handle the calls with a smile and make everyone happy. And so it was until the call volumes kept going up and up. In order to get good customer service scores, the call center had to keep taking more and more bodies from the processors to answer the calls in a timely manner, which of course meant longer processing times and more phone calls. So many calls that a new system was needed to help the customer service center track the tracking that was tracking the stacks, that tracked the work. Applications would take 6 weeks. And so it was until... Chapter 7. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. One day, L got a new boss, and the new boss didn't think the last boss did a good job of making them the best office in the kingdom. He wanted to be a better boss and make the dreaded piles go away, so he reorganized the office and gave everyone new titles. But when this didn't make them the best in the land and the piles of stacks didn't go away, he brought back the consultant to tell him how fast his workers should be working. Using fancy charts and graphs, the consultant explained to Elle and her boss that processing usually takes 6 weeks, but sometimes it can take up to 16 weeks. They all agreed that 12 weeks was the acceptable standard. A new system that alerted Elle when an application was in the 11th week could assure those got to the front of the pile and were completed before week 12, and none would ever take that long again. Now, all applications took exactly 12 weeks. And so it was until... Chapter 8. Broke and Broken. As more and more people sent in applications and Abby got further and further behind, the piles turned into mountains, and the mountains seemed insurmountable. But there was a hero on the horizon. If only they could afford her, the magical princess from IT could make all of the mountains disappear with a wave of her wand. Each area gave up money and resources to pay for the princess. A paperless electronic application system would tame the process and return order to the office. It would be grand. It would be perfect. It would be 7 years and 4 bosses later. Finally, the mountains of paper were vanquished. Well, not really vanquished. They were scanned, coded, approved, reapproved, verified, signed off on, and tracked just as much as before. Only all that CYA was now paperless. To pay for the system, each section had to give up resources they used to do their work, which meant they had less to do the work. Soon, applications went from 12 weeks to 24 weeks. And so the fable goes. Each chapter trying to make life easier for Abby, each endeavor taken with the best of intentions. All the while, Abby's happily ever after gets lost in a dark forest of tracking systems, call centers, reports, and CYA. The same 30 minutes of work now takes 6 months, and even our hero is crushed by the pressure. A dark cloud has settled over the kingdom. All the noble work shadowed by the problems of trying to keep up. But like any good fable, there can be a true happily ever after to the story. You can fight off the evils that rob you of your capacity to do more good. You can find ways to cope with the increasing volume and decreasing budgets. You can serve the people of your kingdom in the way you've always wanted to. Write down your own ending by visiting publicgrade.org and take a quiz about how you would fix the fable. And learn how government agencies around the globe are finding ways to work 80% faster without new costs. The Fable of Complexity, from Ken Miller's book, Extreme Government Makeover.